What does narcissism look like when it's in the church? How can you recognize narcissistic church leaders, pastors, and the systems that protect these toxic leaders? Today, we break all that down in this video from a longer interview with narcissism expert and best-selling author Chelsea Brooke Cole. When you think about narcissism in like spiritual settings and church settings, how do you see it show up most? What are some of the red flags that we could look out for? Because again, in today's kind of celebrity pastor culture and megachurch culture,
Mhm.
we're drawing in and almost inviting in a lot more people with these personalities because you do get so much narcissistic supply
Yep.
from the applause on stage, from people looking at you that way. So, yeah, what are some of the red flags that we can look for in kind of church leaders who might be showing some narcissism?
Mhm. Right, and being charismatic, which all, grandiose narcissists and communal narcissists are, it makes sense why they're drawn to these spaces because you would think someone in church or someone in a spiritual place is doing it for the right reasons, or you would hope so. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that churches make is assuming that everyone who's there is there for the right reason. Now, I don't want everyone to go and
Yeah.
be cynical and think, oh, I'm probably dealing with a narcissist here if someone is trying to do good or is in a leadership position. But I think we have to be healthily skeptical or at least mindful of making sure that people's words and actions match. And that's actually one of the things I would encourage people to look for is hang around a narcissist enough in church and you will start to notice things that don't add up, things that don't make
Mm,
sense. They often say that they're really being helpful or really care about this person, but then you'll often see them talk bad about other people but they'll
yeah.
say that they're doing it, because they need prayers and we need to support them. But you kind of get the idea that like, ooh, that's something you really shouldn't be sharing about. Or it feels more like gossip, or it feels more like they're trying to get you on their side. Like they're trying to recruit you to agree with them rather than being genuine and like handling things in an appropriate
Yeah.
way. So they're often very focused on how things look, and they're often very easily offended as well. Like if you give them any feedback, like, hey, I'm not sure that came across the right way. Or if you call them out, let's say in a meeting, and not even in a bad way, but like you're sharing your idea and maybe it doesn't fit with their idea,
Yeah.
that's when you're going to start to see the other side and you're going to kind of be on the hit list. And then you'll start to hear things from
Yeah.
other
I
people.
have been on that hit list. That's
It's
the touch
awful.
not God's anointed moment.
Yes.
I went from I was on a church staff where I was really on the inner circle in a lot of places. Like I was very well thought of. Ask a couple of the wrong questions in the wrong place, and now all of a
Mm,
sudden, leaders think you're totally against them.
yes.
So hey, we got to get rid of this guy. We got to move them because he's against us. Well, I'm not against you. I'm asking questions because I don't think this is going the way you want it to go. I
Hmm.
don't think it's accomplishing what you want to accomplish. One of the things you said that I think was interesting, Chelsea, was you said, it's dangerous sometimes to assume that everybody who's in church is doing ministry for the
Hmm.
right reasons.
Hmm.
Is it possible for some of these pastors who exhibit narcissism, right, to be doing it for the right reasons and to really have a good heart, yet not recognize their own narcissism and own deficits? Is it possible for both things to be going on at the same time, doing it with the
Mm,
right heart, but doing it the wrong way and stepping over people because they don't have that self esteem, because they
mm.
don't have what they need to operate in a healthy way?
Sure. I mean, part of narcissism is that denial and the lack of ability to self reflect on your own behaviors and see how you're impacting others. So I think a lot of times narcissists in church have so many defense mechanisms to protect their insecure core, to protect that insecure ego, that they often think that they're doing the right thing, and they also tell the lies so many times. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I'm a good person, even though they don't stop and say, but am I doing good things? Am I
Mm,
actually living out what I'm saying? They just need to see themselves in a positive light. And if they do anything or anyone calls them out, like, hey, that wasn't so good, or hey, that was hurtful, they find a way in their mind to kind of not see that, deny it. But I will say that narcissists know what they're doing because they also know when to be charismatic and when to put that face up And when that
Mm-hmm.
face and that facade drops, sometimes people really struggle with that question of, but do they know what they're doing? And if they don't really know what they're doing, then can we hold them accountable? Well, how do they know when to be charming and charismatic, or when to look sad and pitiful, and when to criticize? Because there is that moment when you're
Mm.
alone with them, they treat you differently than when you're in public around other people who they want to see them in a certain way. And that means there's
Yeah.
intentionality behind it, and that they are aware to the extent that they want to be.
That's good. That's good. So, it is possible for them to really start believing those lies over time because
Mm-hmm.
they know who they want to be, right? So they really believe they're a good person, but they don't reconcile that I'm not doing the things a good person would do. They
Mm-hmm.
believe they're healthy, but don't reconcile I'm not doing things that a healthy person would do. At the same time, they can still be held accountable because they know they're manipulating people,
Mm-hmm.
and they know when they're turning it on, turning it off. I want to switch gears if we can for just a second. And we did a recent episode on narcissistic systems. And what I was talking about was how narcissistic systems I've seen show up in the church, systems that protect narcissism, draw narcissism, that exploit people.
Mm.
How the damage that those do in the church. And one of the pieces of feedback that I got a few times on social media was systems can't be narcissistic. So I
Ooh.
wanted to get your kind of opinion on that because you talk about narcissistic systems and family systems in your
Mm-hmm.
book, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talk about them on social media. So I've got a couple of questions to follow up on narcissistic systems, but I want to hear your take on that first. And how would you answer that? How would you respond, I guess,
Mm.
to that comment that systems can't be narcissistic, only people can?
That's interesting. I don't think I've heard that systems can't be narcissistic, because it seems when you're in one, you so know that they are. The most
Yeah.
obvious narcissistic system is a cult. I think
Mm,
we can usually, see from the outside how cults operate much like a narcissistic relationship. There's a charismatic leader, there's kind of a blindness to what's happening. The core values, or what is being espoused or is being said that the cult is doing, might seem good, and so people get in with the right intentions, but then once you get in there, you realize that you're not actually living out those values. It's about supporting whatever that communal narcissist, honestly usually the cult leader, wants to do. And if you question, if you start to push back on that, that's when you're going to be gaslighted. You're going to be told you're the problem. You're crazy. Don't be ridiculous. How could you say that of so and so? They've been so good to you. They've been so helpful. They're such a, pillar of this community. How could you ever say something like that? So that's when you will be gaslighted, not just by one person, but by many people. And how the system
mm,
operates is to keep you in the circle the way that they want you to. They want you to not ask questions, be agreeable, go along, don't think for yourself, think the way that we tell you to think. And if you try to be an autonomous, independent individual in that system, you are going to be told you're the problem.
yeah.